What's up guys, Sean here with Gadget Reason, back with another episode of Tech and Coffee, where I unpack some of the top trending and most interesting tech stories from around the web over the past few days. And I want to start things off today with a story about a startup camera company by the name of Light, and they're getting ready to finally start shipping some of the early pre-orders for their L16 camera. And I want to talk a little bit about this camera and why I think it's interesting, and the reasons why I think a lot of camera lovers, as well as just tech enthusiasts, should be interested in seeing what happens with this camera over the next few months. Now, if you haven't seen the L16 camera before, here's some production images of what the final product is most likely going to look like. And it is obviously very striking when you see it for the first time. One of the things that makes the L16 so interesting is that when you look at the front of it, you can see it has 16 separate camera modules. Each camera module having its own sensor, its own lens, and it takes its own individual picture each time you click the shutter button. A couple of things that the guys at Light are promising with the L16 is that it can get extremely high dynamic range, DSLR quality low light photos, low noise, and the ability to go in and refocus all of your photos via an app, and the images will be up to 52 megapixels in size. Now, that sounds fantastic, and I really hope that that turns out to be something that in practice looks better than, at least better than your average point-and-shoot camera. Now, obviously, the guys over at Light are promising a whole heck of a lot by stating that these pictures are gonna look almost as good, if not better, than some of the photos you might get on a typical DSLR. If that works out to be true in real-world use case, then that's gonna be great, because this thing is incredibly small. It's a heck of a lot smaller than any DSLR you might carry around. Now, if the L16 can't exceed the quality of images that you might get out of a really high quality or more expensive point-and-shoot camera, then it's really going to be kind of dead in the water before it launches. But if it can exceed that, and it can come even close to DSLR quality photos from something that's about the size of your average smartphone, that's going to be huge, not only for the camera industry, but I think for tech enthusiasts or anybody who uses cameras on a regular basis. So I think it's going to be awesome to see, and I'm really, really excited to see what happens in the next few months. But at the end of the day, I'm not convinced that these tiny little camera modules and sensors that would be the same ones you typically would find in your average smartphone are going to be that much better just by combining it with their algorithm and with whatever other proprietary software they have going on to stitch together images from multiple different lenses. But you know, they seem pretty confident, and the images that they do show on their website look great. I'm just not sure that they look better than a really good smartphone photo if it was properly lit and had all of the advantages of being put together in a proper photo shoot for the purposes of marketing. So until I can actually get my hands on one of these cameras and test it out firsthand, I'm just going to remain cautiously optimistic, but I definitely think it's worth something keeping your eyes on if you're a photographer or just a fan of tech and photography in general. And I'll leave a link in the description to the Light camera website where you guys can check out some of the photos yourself and, you know, maybe just follow them or subscribe to their mailing list if you want to be updated once the camera starts shipping to regular consumers sometime later this year. Jumping ahead to the next story, Atari has announced more details about their upcoming Atari Box. I'm not sure if that name is official. Let's hope not, because it's terrible. But the Atari Box, as it's called for now, is Atari's follow-up or answer to the NES and SNES classic consoles from Nintendo. So it seems as though the huge trend in retro gaming is continuing on for the foreseeable future. Atari's still being pretty tight-lipped about exactly what the Atari Box is supposed to be. We don't know what system it's going to be emulating or representing. We don't know the price, the release date. We really don't know much of anything. Some of the leaked images that came out yesterday showed the front panel of the box having a wood grain finish, which of course harkens back to the Atari 2600. However, today some more details leaked out, and Atari seems to be hinting that this might be more than just a retro gaming box. I'm not sure what to make of the Atari Box, and being that the Atari 2600 is going back so far into gaming history, where the games were so much more simple and the graphics were just very blocky, and it's definitely a far cry from what people come to expect, even from NES or Super NES games. Now, the reasons why you might want to keep your eye on the Atari Box would be if you're just a die-hard gaming fan or a fan of gaming history, and you really want to collect all of these retro gaming sort of mini console boxes that have been released and seem to be continuing to get released into the future. And that way you kind of have sort of a record or history of all that gaming has had to offer over the years. However, I don't think that this system or a system like this is going to get anywhere near the same actual replay value that you would get from an NES or the SNES or even the upcoming Genesis retro console that they're releasing. I think that these machines have games that have a lot more bite to them, and there's just a lot more content, a lot more meat to them. And I think you're going to have a lot more replay value and a lot more time spent playing on something like that than you would going all the way back to the Atari 2600 and some of the more simple games games from that era. I think that the price is going to be a really key factor here. If Atari can keep the price down to something like $39 to $59, that might be enough to entice some gamers or maybe some parents that remember having Atari 2600s when they were younger to go out and buy this so they can show their kids maybe where gaming came from, or possibly just to have some novelty gaming machine around that you can kind of show what games used to look like. I could see that if it's affordable, but at $79 to $99, I think it would be completely way overpriced, and I don't think people are going to jump all over that the way they did the NES Classic consoles that were launched last year. So the question I have for you guys is, if the Atari box is strictly an Atari 2600 emulation box, would it still be something that you're interested in, and why? Leave me some comments in the comment section below, or find me on Instagram or Twitter at GadgetReason and leave me some comments there. I'm really curious as to what you guys think about the Atari box. Here's an interesting Amazon-related story. Amazon has announced that they are releasing the Amazaon Fire TV Edition. Now, to me, that name is pretty silly, and they could have come up with something a little bit better. But basically, these are Amazon Fire branded televisions that include all the features that you've come to associate with Amazon Fire devices, including Alexa support. The TVs themselves are built in partnership with Chinese manufacturer Tongfang under the Element branding. Now, the biggest reasons why I think someone might be interested in these TVs are because it's a low barrier of entry to a 4K television, and you're getting a 4K television that has all of the features that you would normally get in an Amazon box. So it's basically just a way for Amazon to get more Fire TV branded equipment out in the public, but also lowering that barrier of entry to the 4K television market. Now, the TVs do include a voice search enabled remote, which works with Alexa, and it also has quick access buttons to Amazon Prime Video, Netflix, and Prime Music services. The TVs will be sold in 43, 50, 55, and 65-inch sizes, starting at $449 for the smallest television and going up to $899 for the 65-inch. Now, $899 for a 65-inch smart TV that has a bunch of Amazon features built into it is probably a pretty good deal any way you slice it. Now, if you're looking to get a new 4K television and you're not wanting to spend all of the extra money that's going to come from buying a true HDR-capable 10-bit panel display that's, 65 inches in size, which is probably going to be a heck of a lot more than $899, then this could be a really good deal for somebody that's just looking to get their first 4K television and transition from the 1080p generation that they might already have. Now, it's worth mentioning you shouldn't expect some of the higher end features like HDR or 10-bit panels or wide color gamut on these Amazon Fire televisions, but at $899, it's still a pretty good deal. And if you're concerned about the price of upgrading to a 4K TV that does have HDR and all those features, then this might be the way to go. It definitely might be worth checking out if you're in the market for a new television currently. And in some gaming related news today, Splatoon 2 reviews are finally in. The embargo for reviews for anybody who had an early copy of the game has been lifted, so now reviewers are free to put their opinions of Splatoon 2 online. And the early reviews of Splatoon 2 are pretty positive, although a lot of reviewers are commenting that it's mostly more of the same. So it's scoring about the same as the Wii U version of Splatoon did, and a lot of the reviews also mention that this is basically a Splatoon Deluxe, similar to the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that was released for the Switch a few months back. It's not really truly a full-blown sequel, it's really just a few extra little features added to the existing Splatoon that came out a while back on the Wii U, and the graphics look pretty good. The developers released a statement earlier this month stating that they opted to run the game at 720p in both docked and portable mode, and keep the game locked at 60 frames per second, as opposed to having a variable resolution where the game might run at 1080p in docked mode. Being that this is a competitive online multiplayer, they wanted the experience to be as perfect as possible, and 60 frames per second was more of a priority than getting the game to run at a higher resolution. And another thing that did get mentioned by quite a few different reviews was the fact that Nintendo's janky online system is just about as bad as everyone was anticipating. Having to use a smartphone and an app to find lobbies and find people to connect with and play is definitely not an ideal solution, and I definitely wish Nintendo had just put together a true online experience built directly into the Switch, the way every other modern console has had now for the past 8 years. And lastly today, I did want to talk a little bit about the Nintendo Switch itself. It has now been out for just over 4 months, and as someone who's had the Switch since its original launch date on March 3rd, I wanted to give a couple of comments about what I think of the Switch 4 months later. For me, I think the Switch has served exactly the purpose that I thought it would. It's a system that's incredibly unique in the fact that it gives me the ability to play the same exact games on my television that I can play, in my bedroom or anywhere else I might want to go. Now, for me, that makes a huge impact into the way I play games, just simply for the fact that I don't have a ton of time these days, and I don't have time to always sit down at my couch for a 4-hour gaming session, which is typically what I used to do with my PS4 or my Xbox One. It's just a big experience. You have to sit down, turn on your TV, get your surround sound all set up, and by the time you actually get jumped into a game and start playing, nobody really wants to do that for 15 or 20 minute bite-sized game sessions. Now with the Switch, it's completely different because I can just pop it on and play for a few minutes and then hit the sleep button and put it back to sleep. And then, at the end of the day, if I've gotten 15 or 20 minutes of playtime throughout the entire day, I can pop it into the dock and spend an hour or two playing on my television, or, maybe on the weekends I can spend a bigger chunk of time playing on a longer play session. So for me, the Nintendo Switch really has served exactly the purpose that I thought it would, and actually even more so because of the sheer amount of playtime that I've gotten in the short time that I've had the Switch. So in terms of who exactly the Switch is for, or what reasons anybody might have to want to buy one, I would say it pretty much just comes down to, if you are someone who is a huge Nintendo fan and you like all of their franchises, then that would be enough reason right there. But beyond that, I think the Switch third-party support is going to be much stronger than we saw on the Wii U. And this is pretty evident in the fact that we are getting a full FIFA and NBA 2K game coming to the Switch, as well as some other third-party titles that were announced. And then, of course, there was the announcement that Metroid Prime 4 would be coming to the Switch as well. So there's definitely a lot of good content, a lot of good games to be played on the Switch. So I would say that just due to the sheer number of different places and ways you can play the Switch alone is enough to make it an easy system to recommend if you're a fan of gaming in general. So that's pretty much my opinion on the Nintendo Switch. So I'd love to know what you guys think. If you've already bought a Switch, leave me some comments in the comment section letting me know what your experience has been like and how much playtime you get out of it versus what you were expecting when you bought it. And if you haven't bought a Switch yet, let me know the reasons why you don't plan on buying one if that is the case. So that does it for this episode of Tech and Coffee. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe to the channel and be notified anytime another episode of Tech and Coffee gets uploaded, as well as any of the other videos that I post to the Gadget Reason channel. Also, be sure to follow me on all the social media platforms at Gadget Reason. I'd love to hear your comments and interact with you guys there as well. So that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Live it up, live it up.